One of the things that's great when manufacturers of video game systems do is when they make mid-life cycle upgrades that everybody gets to enjoy. Whether we're talking about better graphics, faster processing, reduction in cost. Imagine that, a system getting cheaper, not more expensive the older it got. Anyways, let's take a look at a number of video game controllers that manufacturers improved along the line. First and foremost, let's talk about the original Xbox controller and the Duke, where we got the S controller, which was a huge, smaller, it was an improvement over the Duke controller. Much more ergonomic, much better functionality. I still don't like this controller, but I loathe the Duke controller. Now, one controller that I did really like was the original controller for the PlayStation. It was comfortable, it was ergonomic. For me, it was a natural progression of my favorite controller of all time, the Super Nintendo controller. Well, they took this and evolved it and added dual analog sticks on here to give you more of a 3D capable style controller. And I mean, I love this controller, and you can see the influence of it even today on the DualSense controller on the PS5. I think Sony really did a good job with that. How about the original GameCube controller? I think this controller is fantastic. Now, this is a change they didn't make as an included controller, but as an optional controller that just about all of us went to, and that's the Wavebird. What did this add? Wireless connectivity. What did it take away? Rumble. So it did have some give and take on there. I think this is actually a step back. The original Sega Saturn controller had great ergonomics. It was a nice evolution of the Sega Genesis 6-button controller, which we'll talk about in a second. But they went from this to the 3D controller. And again, this was an optional add-on controller you could get. I don't like anything about this. This feels to me like the Dreamcast or the Duke controller, and I don't like any of those. So let's talk about the Sega Genesis, because the original 3-button controller, a lot of people liked. Me, I thought this thing was huge. I was not a fan of this. But then they came out with their 6-button controller, much smaller, much more compact, added 3 more buttons so you could actually do things like play Street Fighter 2 properly without having to hit the start button to go back and forth from one style of, punches to kicks and whatnot. But I thought the 6-button controller was a huge upgrade. And finally, I know a lot of people have been asking me when I've been talking about the NES controller recently, why in the world have I not mentioned this? The Dogbone controller. This is perhaps the finest upgrade to any controller we've ever seen. Like I say, this is good. This is practically flawless. I know some people don't like the angled buttons. To me, it feels like a Super Nintendo controller. This is comfortable, it's precise, it feels great. I love everything about this. Let me know down in the comments which controllers over the years that were included with systems got an evolution that was your favorite.